Do you remember me, Cowboy? I'm the Apache woman you saved years ago. I've come back to marry you." The sun was just beginning to climb above the jagged peaks of the Arizona mountains, spilling gold across the dry plains. The air was sharp with the smell of dust and sage, and the low, steady hum of cicadas filled the valley. Samuel Whitaker, known to everyone as Sam, had been up for hours. He was a young cowboy, barely 25, tall and lean, with sun-browned skin from years of working under the harsh sun. His life was simple but hard, tending cattle, mending fences, riding the plains, and doing whatever was needed to keep the ranch running. It was honest work, and Sam liked the rhythm of it, though he often felt the loneliness that came with such an isolated life. That morning, as Sam rode his horse along the ridge overlooking the valley, he noticed something unusual. Smoke curled in thin spirals from a distant grove of mesquite trees. Smoke wasn't uncommon. Sometimes settlers lit fires to cook or signal. But this smoke seemed frantic, irregular, and in a place where no one normally settled. His instincts told him something was wrong. Sam tugged the reins and nudged his horse forward, eyes scanning for movement. As he neared the grove, he caught sight of figures moving frantically among the trees. At first, he thought they were settlers, but as he got closer, he realized they were women and children. Their clothes were simple, adorned with colorful patterns that stood out against the dusty landscape. They ran with an urgency that spoke of fear. Sam's heart quickened. Outlaws? Raiders? He had heard stories of bands that roamed the plains, preying on isolated communities. Without thinking twice, he spurred his horse down the ridge toward them. A sudden cry broke the air. Sam saw one woman stumble and fall, her child tugging at her skirts. Another figure, a man broad-shouldered and rough-looking, was chasing them, swinging a heavy stick. Sam could feel a surge of anger and adrenaline. He gripped his rifle, which he always carried, and aimed toward the approaching threat. "Hey!" he shouted, his voice echoing across the trees. "Leave them alone!" The man froze for a moment, startled by the sudden voice. Sam's horse neighed, stomping the ground, and he charged forward with surprising speed. The man waved the stick, but Sam's confidence and sheer determination made the intruder hesitate. With a sharp yell, Sam raised his rifle, though he didn't fire. He didn't want to kill if he could avoid it. The outlaws were cowards at heart, and sometimes they fled when confronted boldly. And that's exactly what happened. The man and his companions turned and disappeared into the trees, their curses fading into the distance. The women and children collapsed to the ground, panting and trembling. One woman in particular caught Sam's attention. She was young, with dark, piercing eyes that looked at him with both fear and gratitude. Her long, dark hair framed her face, and she held a small child close to her chest. Sam dismounted quickly, offering his hand. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. "Come with me, you're safe now." The woman hesitated, scanning the horizon as if expecting the danger to return. Then with a small nod, she allowed Sam to guide her and the others toward his ranch, which lay about a mile away. The ride was tense but quiet. The children clung to their mothers, and the women whispered in a language Sam didn't understand, yet he could feel their gratitude in every glance. The young woman, Ahioka, he would later learn, stayed close, her eyes constantly on him, as if measuring the courage of the man who had just saved her family. When they reached the ranch, Sam opened the gates and led them inside. The small wooden homestead was humble but sturdy, surrounded by pens of cattle and a few scattered barns. Sam gave them water and blankets, helping them sit on the ground while he fetched food. There was little he could offer: bread, dried meat, and fresh water from the well, but it was enough to calm their immediate fear. Ahioka watched quietly, her eyes darting to the horizon, alert and cautious. She spoke softly to the others, her voice melodic, though Sam couldn't understand her words. Still, the warmth in her tone told him that she was comforting them as best she could. Days passed, and Sam took care of the group, ensuring they had food, water, and shelter. He repaired a small shed to give them privacy and kept watch on the surrounding lands, fearing the outlaws might return. During this time, Sam and Ahioka began to communicate. At first, it was gestures and simple words, pointing, nodding, and showing. Sam learned to understand her meaning. When she pointed to the horizon, she was wary. When she handed him something, she was trusting. Over time, they developed a kind of silent understanding, built on respect and necessity. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains and painted the sky with streaks of pink and gold, Sam and Ahioka sat outside near the fire. The other women and children were inside, resting. Sam handed her a cup of water, and she accepted it with a shy smile. For a moment, the chaos of the past few days faded. Sam found himself curious about her life, her thoughts, and her dreams. He could see strength in her eyes, a courage that went beyond mere survival. "I've never met anyone like her," he thought. She had faced danger with composure and had cared for her family without faltering. Sam respected that deeply. And though he didn't yet understand the world she came from, he could sense that she carried values and traditions that were important, and that made him want to honor her trust in him. As the nights grew cooler, Sam ensured that everyone was safe and comfortable. He built fires, repaired fences, and even shared stories of his own life, of cattle drives, storms survived, and the quiet beauty of the plains. Ahioka listened, occasionally tilting her head or letting out a soft laugh at something he said. It was a small, fragile connection, yet it became a lifeline for both of them in those uncertain days. Before long, it became clear that the group could not stay at the ranch indefinitely. They needed to return to their community, far to the west, where their people awaited news of their safety. Sam knew he had to send them back, but he felt a pang of sadness at the thought of letting Ahioka go. On the morning of their departure, he helped them pack their few belongings. Ahioka handed him a small, handcrafted pendant, simple but beautiful, carved with intricate patterns. She didn't speak, but her eyes conveyed a message. "Remember me. You saved my life." Sam took the pendant, holding it carefully. "I won't forget," he said softly. He wanted to speak more, but words seemed inadequate for the gravity of the moment. The women and children mounted their horses, and Sam watched as they disappeared over the ridge, the wind catching their garments and the dust swirling behind them. Ahioka's gaze lingered on him until the last moment. Then, with a final nod, she was gone. For days afterward, Sam walked the ranch with a quiet heaviness in his chest. The pendant rested on a chain around his neck, a reminder of bravery, trust, and the bond formed in the most unlikely of circumstances. Though life returned to its regular rhythm, cattle to tend, fences to repair, and plains to ride, he often found his thoughts drifting back to that moment, to the eyes of the woman who had trusted him with her life. In the solitude of the wide, open plains, Sam realized that some encounters, brief as they might be, could change a person forever. Saving Ahioka and her family had been more than a duty. It had been an experience that left an indelible mark on his heart, teaching him about courage, gratitude, and the delicate power of human connection. He didn't yet know that their story wasn't over. That fate had a way of bringing people back to one another. But he carried the memory with quiet reverence, unaware that one day, years later, the past would return in a way that neither of them could have imagined. Years passed slowly on the wide, dusty plains. Samuel Whitaker, known to most as Sam, had grown into a man respected in the surrounding ranching community. He worked hard every day, rising before the sun and riding until dusk. The rhythm of ranch life was familiar and steady, yet a quiet emptiness lingered in his heart. Despite the companionship of neighbors and occasional travelers passing through, none had ever touched him in the way the young Apache woman had. Ahioka's image often returned in his thoughts, her steady eyes, the quiet courage she carried, and that small pendant she had left him. The seasons changed, as they always did. Summers brought scorching heat, turning the rivers low and the grass brittle. Winters were harsh and silent, blanketing the plains in cold winds and early nights. Sam managed the challenges of his ranch with determination, but each evening, when he sat by the fire or walked along the fences, his mind wandered back to that long-ago encounter. He could remember the sound of the children's laughter after they felt safe, the relief on the faces of the women, and Ahioka's cautious but grateful smile. Those memories were vivid, like they had happened yesterday, even though years had passed. Meanwhile, Ahioka returned to her community, far to the west of Sam's ranch. Life for her was not easy. She had grown up under the watchful eyes of her family and elders, learning traditions, stories, and the ways of her people. She had survived danger when she was young, but that survival had shaped her into someone wise beyond her years. Though she had faced many challenges, her thoughts often drifted to Sam, the cowboy who had risked his life without question to save her family. She had never known his name at the time, yet she carried the memory of his courage as if it had become part of her own strength. In her community, Ahioka grew into a young woman admired for both her wisdom and her bravery. She had responsibilities beyond her years, caring for younger siblings and assisting in important tasks for her people. Despite her busy life, she never forgot the cowboy who had helped her in her most vulnerable moment. She treasured the pendant she had given him, which she had kept close to her heart as a symbol of trust, courage, and the fleeting connection that had changed her life. Back on the ranch, Sam had tried to live without dwelling on the past too much. He met women, some of whom were kind and cheerful, yet none could replace the quiet strength he had glimpsed in Ahioka. The world around him moved on, neighbors married, families grew, and cattle were driven from one valley to another. But Sam's thoughts often returned to that day in the grove, to the young woman who had trusted him completely. It was a memory tinged with both warmth and longing, and he kept it locked in a private corner of his heart. Life's challenges never stopped. Sam faced harsh weather, illnesses in his herd, and occasional disputes with neighboring ranchers. Each problem required patience, skill, and endurance. Yet in the quiet moments, he would sit under the stars, the pendant Ahioka had given him resting against his chest, and imagine the life she must have lived after that day. He pictured her teaching younger children, tending to her people, and moving through the world with the same courage she had shown when he first met her. Ahioka, on her side, carried similar thoughts. Though she respected her community's traditions and had many obligations, she often found herself thinking about the plains and the brave cowboy who had saved them. She wondered how he had lived after that day, whether he remembered her as vividly as she remembered him. Sometimes she imagined returning to the place where it had all happened, not knowing if he would still be there, not knowing if he would remember her at all. The uncertainty did not stop her hope, it only made it more precious. Time created its own rhythm. Both Sam and Ahioka grew into adults shaped by their experiences and memories. Sam became a man of steady habits, known for fairness and bravery in his community. Yet he remained quietly private, guarding the memory of the young woman who had left such an impression on him. He worked hard, saving every coin he could, expanding his ranch slowly and building a life rooted in the vast, open land he loved. Ahioka, too, grew in ways that reflected her past. She became a respected voice in her community, balancing tradition and care for those around her. She had learned that life was unpredictable, that moments of courage could define a person's destiny, and that connections made in a single instant could echo for years. And she never stopped thinking of Sam, even if only quietly to herself, wondering if fate might bring them together again. Occasionally, rumors reached Sam of groups moving west through the plains, travelers, traders, or occasionally raiders. He often thought of the day he had saved the group of women and children, realizing that life was fragile and unpredictable. It was this knowledge that shaped the way he treated people, with fairness, courage, and respect. He understood the value of kindness, of being someone willing to risk for others, and the memory of Ahioka strengthened that principle in his life. Life's quiet persistence continued. Sam's ranch prospered steadily, though not without effort. He repaired fences, fed the cattle, and supervised workers. Even in moments of success, though, he sometimes felt a sense of incompleteness. Something or someone was missing, and he couldn't shake the thought of the woman whose eyes had reflected both fear and trust so many years ago. Meanwhile, Ahioka faced challenges in her world as well. She navigated expectations of her family and community, learned to manage responsibilities she hadn't anticipated, and found ways to contribute to her people. Through all of it, she kept alive the memory of the cowboy who had saved her family, who had treated them with kindness in a world that often showed cruelty. That memory gave her strength and guided her decisions, reminding her that courage and care could survive even the harshest circumstances. As the years went by, both Sam and Ahioka faced moments of doubt. Sam sometimes wondered if he would ever see her again, if the connection they had shared had meant anything beyond that brief encounter. Ahioka, in her own way, questioned whether he remembered her, whether fate would allow their paths to cross again. And yet in their hearts hope endured. It was quiet but persistent, like a small flame refusing to go out. Sam's routine life continued, yet he began to notice subtle signs of change in himself. He became more reflective, pausing more often when the wind swept across the plains, imagining stories of people he had never met, yet feeling a connection to them. He noticed the beauty of the sunrise in a way he hadn't before, feeling the vastness of the world and the possibilities it held. The memory of Ahioka became intertwined with these reflections, a quiet reminder that life could be unexpectedly meaningful. Ahioka, far away, also experienced growth and transformation. She began to see that life could hold surprises and that courage was not only in grand gestures, but in the everyday choices one made at protecting family, honoring tradition, and living with integrity. She often held the pendant close, feeling the memory of the young cowboy who had saved her and imagining a life where they might meet again. It was a fragile hope, yet it gave her comfort in moments of uncertainty. Over the years, letters and travelers occasionally passed through, but none could carry the story between them. Distance, language, and circumstance kept them apart. Yet the connection endured silently, shaping the lives of both in ways neither could fully articulate. It was a bond born not of daily contact, but of a single act of courage and trust, a reminder that some relationships transcend time and space. As the seasons continued to turn, both Sam and Ahioka matured into adults deeply aware of the fragility of life, the power of courage, and the quiet strength of hope. Sam's ranch remained a place of work and solitude, yet memories of that fateful day colored his thoughts and guided his actions. Ahioka's life in her community grew richer and more responsible, yet she never forgot the young cowboy who had saved her. And so, years passed in quiet anticipation, shaping two lives in parallel. Sam and Ahioka were unaware that their paths would one day cross again, that the bond they had formed in a fleeting moment would not fade but endure across the years. They lived, learned, and carried the memory of each other, a silent promise of courage, hope, and connection that would one day find its way back to the open plains of Arizona. The plains of Arizona were as wide and untamed as ever, the horizon stretching endlessly under a sky painted with the colors of early spring. Samuel Whitaker had risen before the sun, tending to the ranch as he always did, moving among the cattle, repairing fences, and checking on the distant fields. Life had become a steady rhythm over the years, and Sam had grown into a man both strong and thoughtful, respected by his neighbors for his fairness and resilience. Yet even amidst this routine, he could never shake a certain sense of anticipation, a quiet feeling that something important was approaching, though he did not know what it would be. On that particular morning, the wind carried a scent unfamiliar to the plains, a faint mix of smoke and wildflowers. Sam's horse shifted nervously as he rode along the ridge, and instinctively he tensed. He had always trusted his instincts, the same instincts that had once led him to save a group of women and children from danger years ago. He scanned the horizon, eyes narrowing against the sun, and caught sight of a rider approaching in the distance. At first he assumed it was a traveler or a trader, but there was something in the way the figure rode, confident, steady, deliberate, that made him pause. As the rider drew closer, Sam's heart skipped a beat. The long, dark hair, the graceful posture, and the calm yet piercing gaze were unmistakable. Time seemed to slow as recognition struck him like lightning. It was Ahioka, the Apache woman he had saved years ago. She was older now, matured by experience and life's challenges, yet the same strength and determination that had first caught his attention remained in her eyes. She had returned. Ahioka's horse slowed as she reached the ranch gate. Sam dismounted, trying to steady his voice, though his heart was pounding. "Ahioka?" he asked, disbelief and hope mingling in his tone. She gave a small, confident smile, one that seemed to carry both memories and intentions. "Do you remember me, cowboy?" she said, her voice calm and steady. "I'm the Apache woman you saved years ago. I've come back to marry you." Sam stood frozen for a moment, the words sinking in. It had been so long, and yet she remembered him, and more astonishingly, she had returned with purpose. His mind raced with memories, the day of the rescue, the fear in her eyes, the way she had trusted him completely, and the pendant she had given him. He reached for the small token around his neck, now worn smooth by years of touch, and felt a rush of emotion. I remember," he said softly, almost unable to speak. Ahioka dismounted and approached, her eyes never leaving his. There was a quiet confidence in her steps, a certainty that spoke of years of preparation and thought. She carried herself with the grace of someone who had faced life's challenges and emerged stronger, and yet there was a warmth in her gaze that softened the stern lines of experience. Sam felt a mixture of awe, relief, and joy, emotions he had not expected to feel all at once. Over the next few days, Ahioka stayed at the ranch and they spent hours talking. Words that had been left unsaid for years flowed freely now. They shared stories of the time apart, each revealing moments of struggle, growth, and resilience. Sam spoke of the ranch, the challenges of the plains, and the quiet loneliness that had accompanied him. Ahioka recounted her life in her community, the responsibilities she had shouldered, and the strength she had gained. Despite the years and distance, their connection felt as natural as if no time had passed at all. They walked the plains together, revisiting the ridge where Sam had first seen the smoke that led him to save her family. The land was the same, yet their perspective had changed. What had once been a simple act of courage now felt like the beginning of something far greater. Sam could see in Ahioka not only the woman he had admired, but a partner who had faced life with courage and resilience. And Ahioka saw in Sam the steady, honorable man who had risked his life without hesitation, whose heart had always been open to kindness and justice. Neighbors and travelers noticed the change in Sam. He seemed lighter, more animated, as though the years of quiet longing were finally lifting. And Ahioka, though respectful and measured in her demeanor, carried herself with a quiet pride, aware that she had returned not only to reunite with Sam, but to claim a future that she had imagined for herself for many years. Their days were filled with shared work and conversation. She learned about ranch life, helping with chores, tending to the animals, and riding the plains. Sam, in turn, listened to her wisdom, learning more about her culture, her stories, and the traditions that had shaped her. Evenings were spent by the fire, the two of them sitting in comfortable silence or talking softly as the stars spread across the sky. Memories of the past were recalled, sometimes with laughter, sometimes with quiet reverence. Ahioka brought stories from her people, tales of courage, endurance, and respect for the land, stories that resonated deeply with Sam, reminding him that bravery and honor were universal qualities, transcending the boundaries of culture and upbringing. One afternoon, as they repaired a fence together, a sudden storm rolled across the plains. Dark clouds gathered quickly, lightning streaked the sky, and wind whipped across the fields. They worked together to secure the animals and reinforce the fences. In those moments of shared struggle, the bond between them grew even stronger. Sam realized that the courage he had admired in her years ago was still there, steady and unwavering. Ahioka saw in Sam not only the protector she remembered, but a man capable of partnership, empathy, and resilience. As the storm passed, leaving a fresh scent of rain and wet earth, they paused on a ridge overlooking the valley. Sam handed her the small pendant she had given him years ago. "I've carried this all this time," he said, his voice soft with emotion. "It reminded me of the courage, trust, and hope you brought into my life." "I never forgot you." Ahioka touched the pendant gently, her eyes glistening. "And I never forgot you," she replied. "I knew if fate allowed, our paths would cross again." Their days continued in a rhythm of quiet discovery and shared moments. They cooked together, repaired the ranch, and rode through the plains, always side by side. Slowly, neighbors began to understand the nature of their bond, a connection built on years of memory, courage, and mutual respect. Yet for Sam and Ahioka, the opinions of others mattered little. They had already experienced a life-changing bond once. The rest of the world was secondary. One evening, under a sky lit with stars and the soft glow of the moon, Ahioka took Sam's hand. "I have returned for a reason," she said quietly. "I want to build a life with you not just in memory, but in the present and future. I wish to marry you to stand together in all that life brings." Sam felt a swell of emotion, a mix of awe, gratitude, and love. He had imagined this moment for years, and now it was real. He squeezed her hand gently. "I would be honored," he said, his voice steady with certainty. "I have waited for this day even if I did not know it would come." Preparations began slowly. They spoke of what it meant to be together, of the challenges they might face in a world not always welcoming to such a union. They discussed their hopes, their dreams, and their plans for the future. Every conversation strengthened the bond between them, built on trust, honesty, and shared respect. Sam felt that he had found not only the woman he had admired, but a true partner in life. Ahioka felt that she had returned to the man who had saved her, a man who had proven his courage not only in moments of danger, but in the quiet consistency of his character. As the weeks passed, the bond between them grew even stronger. They shared quiet moments of laughter, worked together on the ranch, and explored the surrounding land. Sam showed Ahioka places he loved, from hidden canyons to quiet streams, while Ahioka taught him about the traditions and stories of her people. In this exchange, they discovered a deeper understanding of each other, learning that their connection was not only rooted in the past, but had blossomed into a partnership capable of enduring all that life could offer. Despite the joy of reunion, there were moments of reflection and uncertainty. Sam worried about the opinions of neighbors, the challenges of merging their worlds, and the obstacles life might throw in their path. Ahioka, too, considered the balance between her responsibilities to her community and her desire to be with Sam. Yet these concerns only strengthened their resolve. They knew that their bond had survived years of separation, uncertainty, and longing. If they could endure that, they could endure anything together. The day finally came when Sam and Ahioka decided to announce their intention to marry. It was a quiet ceremony, held on the plains they both loved, with only a few trusted neighbors as witnesses. The sky was clear, the wind gentle, and the air filled with the scent of wildflowers and sage. As they stood together, hands clasped, the pendant Ahioka had once given Sam resting between them. It felt as if the years of separation, memory, and longing had all led to this perfect moment. In that instant, both Sam and Ahioka understood that life had brought them full circle. The young cowboy and the brave Apache woman who had met by chance so many years ago were finally united by choice, love, and the shared experiences that had shaped them both. It was a reunion born not only of fate, but of courage, patience, and unwavering hope, a reminder that the heart remembers, even across the vast distances of time and land. The morning sun rose slowly over the vast Arizona plains, casting long golden shadows across the ranch. Samuel Whitaker and Ahioka stood together outside the small wooden house, watching the first light touch the horizon. The air was fresh and cool, carrying the scent of wildflowers and dry earth, and the quiet hum of the land felt comforting, familiar, and full of promise. It was the first day of their new life together, a life they had both dreamed of for years, even if only silently in their hearts. Preparations for their marriage had been simple but meaningful. Sam had built a small altar outside, adorned with flowers from the surrounding fields. Ahioka had woven traditional patterns into the cloths that would drape the space, combining the heritage of her people with the life she had embraced on the plains. It was a blending of two worlds, and neither felt more important than the other. Together, they created something new, honoring the past while stepping boldly into the future. As neighbors and a few close friends arrived, Sam and Ahioka greeted them with quiet smiles. The ceremony was small, intimate, and deeply personal. There was no music except for the wind whispering through the trees and the soft murmur of the nearby creek. No grand decorations, no elaborate invitations. Just people who had witnessed the lives of these two individuals and understood the significance of their union. The ceremony reflected who they were, strong, humble, and respectful of the land, each other, and the journey that had brought them to this moment. Sam took Ahioka's hands in his. He looked into her eyes, seeing in them the same courage and trust that had drawn him to her years ago. "Ahioka," he said softly, "from the day I first saw you, I knew you were special. I have carried your memory with me every day, and now I am honored to call you my wife." Ahioka's eyes glistened, reflecting both joy and tears of relief. "Sam," she replied, her voice steady, "I never forgot the man who saved my family. I never forgot the courage and kindness you showed me. Today we begin a new life together, built on trust, respect, and love." When they exchanged vows, there was a quiet intensity in their words. They promised to protect each other, to honor one another, and to face life's challenges together. Every word carried the weight of years spent apart, the lessons learned from hardship, and the hope that the future could be brighter because they would face it as one. As Sam placed the ring on Ahioka's finger, she returned the gesture, placing a simple band on his hand. It was a symbol of commitment, but more importantly, it was a symbol of the bond forged through courage, patience, and unwavering faith in one another. After the ceremony, the newlyweds walked through the plains together. The sun had risen higher now, warming the land, and a gentle breeze carried the sound of distant birds. Sam pointed out the ridge where he had first seen the smoke that had led him to save Ahioka and her family. "This is where it all began," he said quietly. Ahioka nodded, touching the pendant around his neck, the same pendant she had given him years ago. "And now it continues," she replied. "We have the chance to create our story from this point forward." Life together was not without its challenges. Sam and Ahioka had to navigate the differences in their backgrounds, blending the traditions of her people with the daily demands of ranch life. There were moments of misunderstanding, small frustrations, and learning curves, but each difficulty strengthened their partnership. They communicated openly, listened patiently, and approached every problem with mutual respect. The lessons they had learned from years of separation helped them to value each other even more, recognizing that trust and patience were as important as love itself. The ranch became a place of shared responsibility. Sam taught Ahioka the finer points of ranching, caring for cattle, repairing fences, and managing the land, while Ahioka shared her knowledge of plants, healing remedies, and the wisdom of her people. They worked side by side from dawn until dusk, discovering that partnership was not simply about companionship, but about cooperation, shared goals, and mutual growth. The land itself seemed to reflect their harmony, flourishing under their care and attention. Neighbors and travelers often stopped by, noticing the unusual but inspiring partnership between the cowboy and the Apache woman. Some expressed curiosity, others admiration, but Sam and Ahioka remained focused on each other. They understood that their bond was built on experience, courage, and shared history, things that could not be fully understood by anyone else. The world around them moved forward, but they moved together, grounded in the reality of their love and the life they were creating. Evenings were their favorite time. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold, Sam and Ahioka would sit together on the porch or by the fire. They shared stories of their past, laughter over small memories, and dreams for the future. Ahioka sometimes recounted tales of her people, teaching Sam about traditions, legends, and the wisdom carried through generations. Sam shared stories of the plains, of storms survived, of lessons learned from the land and the cattle. Together, they discovered that their worlds were not so different. Both had taught them strength, resilience, and respect for life. One particularly quiet evening, as they watched the stars appear one by one in the deep blue sky, Ahioka rested her head on Sam's shoulder. "I am grateful," she whispered, "for everything, for the past, for this moment, and for our future." Sam gently kissed her forehead. "And I am grateful," he replied, "for the chance to have you in my life, for your courage, and for the hope you gave me even before I knew it." In the stillness of the night, surrounded by the vast plains and endless sky, they felt the full weight of their journey, the years of separation, the memories that had carried them, and the love that had brought them together at last. As time went on, Sam and Ahioka built a life filled with simple joys. They planted a small garden, tended to animals, and explored the land around the ranch. Occasionally, they would travel to nearby communities, learning more about each other's worlds, forging friendships, and strengthening the connections that made life richer. The challenges they faced were met with patience, courage, and humor, as they learned that love was not only about passion, but about enduring, supporting, and understanding one another every day. The pendant, once a small token of a fleeting moment, remained a symbol of their bond. Ahioka had given it to Sam years ago, and now it was a reminder of everything they had survived, the trust they had placed in each other, and the life they had chosen to build together. It was worn close to the heart, a constant link to the past and a promise for the future. Neighbors and travelers who heard their story often marveled at the courage and trust that had led to this union. They spoke of the young cowboy who had risked his life for strangers and the young Apache woman who had returned to honor that courage. The tale became a quiet legend of the plains, a story of bravery, patience, and the enduring power of human connection. But for Sam and Ahioka, it was not about admiration or reputation. It was about living a life together with respect, love, and shared purpose. Children eventually came into their lives, and the ranch echoed with laughter and energy that had not been there before. Sam and Ahioka taught them the values that had guided their own lives: courage, patience, respect for others, and the importance of trust. They shared stories of the land, lessons from their own experiences, and the tale of the day fate had brought them together. Their family grew not only in number but in love, creating a legacy built on the lessons of the past and the hopes for the future. Years passed, yet the bond between Sam and Ahioka never weakened. They continued to work together to explore the land and to face challenges side by side. The plains witnessed their enduring partnership, the growth of their family, and the quiet, steady happiness that came from a life lived with trust, courage, and love. And though the world around them changed, their hearts remained connected to the memory of the day they first met, the act of bravery that had sparked a lifetime of devotion, and the decision to return and embrace a shared future. In the quiet moments as the sun set and the sky turned shades of pink and orange, Sam and Ahioka often sat together, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. They remembered the fear, the hope, the long years of separation, and the joy of reunion. And they understood deeply and fully that some bonds were not broken by time, distance, or circumstance. Some connections endured, carrying courage, love, and trust across years and miles, leading hearts back to where they truly belonged. And so, on the plains of Arizona, amidst the wind, the sky, and the endless land, Sam and Ahioka lived out their days together. Their love was quiet but steadfast, rooted in shared experience, respect, and the memory of bravery and trust. The ranch flourished, the family grew, and their story, the story of the cowboy and the Apache woman who had found each other against all odds, became a testament to the enduring power of hope, courage, and love that spans time.